InvestaFest 2022 is brought to you by these major partners: Atram, To Trade Asia, and these other partners. Do not forget to share your experience and learning on social media. Use our official hashtag InvestaFest 2022.
Christian San Jose has been solving problems using design over the last 14 years and enjoys building and leading human-centered companies and design teams. He is the founder and CEO of UX Plus Conference, the largest annual UX event in Asia with 5,600 total attendees across 90 countries. Since its inception in 2019, UX Plus has gathered and picked the minds of the world's best designers from Google, Adobe, Twitter, Shopify, Uber, Dropbox, Facebook, and more. Today, he's building UX Plus University, which allows anyone, regardless of skill or background, to be a UX designer in 16 weeks. Students pay nothing while learning, and graduates pay a portion of their salary only after they get a job. Previously, he was the head of design at First Circle, a FinTech organization that helped small businesses in Southeast Asia get fast, fair, and flexible access to financing. Before that, he was the co-founder and managing director at Make by the advertising firm Saatchi Saatchi. Christian also led the design and technology departments at MullenLowe Group and Jump Digital. In that time, he has worked with brands like NBA Asia, Vimeo, Cebu Pacific, Adobe, as well as personalities like Kobe Bryant, James Harden, Usher, and Usain Bolt. So without further ado, let's have Mr. Christian San Jose.
Hi everyone, I'm Christian San Jose, and today I'm going to talk about how we built a virtual UX school from scratch without hiring an engineer. So again, I'm Christian San Jose, CEO and founder of UX Plus University. So today we're going to talk about the state of UX learning in Asia, our no-code stack, and we'll talk all about that later on, and also the outcomes that no-code allowed for us. Sorry. Ulit. Fast forward.
User, no worries.
Hi everyone, I'm Christian San Jose. Hi everyone, I'm Christian San Jose, and I'm the CEO and founder of UX Plus University. Today, I'm going to talk about how we built a virtual UX school from scratch without hiring an engineer. So today we'll talk about the state of user experience learning in Asia and our no-code stack. So no-code is a way for us to build applications without writing code, and the outcomes that no-code allowed for us. So again, I'm Christian San Jose, and I'm a designer and now an educator. I'm the CEO and founder of a UX school that teaches students to become UX designers, transition into a UX career, even if they're coming from any background, in just 16 weeks. So notably, in the past, I did Kobe Bryant's official website, his logo, branding, foundation websites as well. Dwayne Wade's official websites, his branding, books, logos. I did work for Usain Bolt's official designs and websites as well. Usher had an interesting request for us. He wanted his own personal wardrobe that only he can log into, pick out clothes that he already owns, sends those clothes to a cart, and whatever gets sent to a cart gets sent to him wherever he is around the world. So he was solving an Usher problem. More recently, I have helped companies like First Circle as its head of design. So First Circle is business loan company, startup also in the Philippines that helps small to medium-sized businesses get better access to financial services. And I've been also helping Copy AI as his first UX hire. It's a Series A startup based in the US. And yeah, that's what I've been doing on the consulting side for the last year. Now, again, I'm the CEO and founder of UX Plus University. So UX Plus started as an annual conference in 2019. It's the largest annual UX event in Asia with 3,000 attendees yearly. We've invited amazing people from directors of UX in Google, former heads of designs in Facebook, successful authors like Jake Knapp, who wrote Sprint, people from Adobe, Spotify, Netflix, and amazing designers all around the world. A lot of them are Filipinos. So from this conference that we started in 2019, after a few years, we turned UX Plus into a live part-time UX learning program. So essentially, students pay nothing until they're hired. So to get in, they just have to have the passion, some knowledge about UX, but generally, they have the option to learn everything about becoming a UX designer in 16 weeks without paying anything. They only pay once they're hired by a company, and their payment plan starts from there. So essentially, a frictionless way to get into a career in technology. So that's everything about UX Plus. But for me, getting to that idea or starting a startup essentially has been for me a tough road. So as a designer, as a problem solver, I've always wanted to build a startup that solves other people's problems, but I always had no idea, or I wasn't really quite sure what problem I should solve. Is it commuting? Commuting is tough in the Philippines. Is it finance? Is it e-commerce? Is it travel? Is it freelancing? So throughout my design career, like I was trying to always find that perfect problem to solve that could help many people. But what I was good at was solving other people's problems, not necessarily my own. So I had a tough time. But in between jobs, I taught and mentored UX designers. I needed to earn money. So for now, I stuck with what I knew, which is helping junior designers or career transitioners really elevate their or deepen their knowledge or deepen their practice in user experience. So if you don't know, user experience is a way to design applications, design websites. It's a methodology of creating those amazing designs by putting users at the center of the process. It's understanding users, having empathy for them, and really being in their shoes and understanding their experiences so that you can craft a better experience for them that's less frustrating or less painful. So that's the job of a UX designer. It's not just the visuals, but also the human behavioral understanding. So I thought to myself, why not user experience? It's something that I've been in for 15 years. It's something I've taught junior designers. I built UX agencies and teams within product companies that are centered around this idea of creating great designs using UX. So why not solve something that I'm very close to? And that's what I did. So I started building. So at first, we were trying to build a pre-recorded course platform where we'll just teach bits and pieces about the user experience world, maybe sell it for $150 to $200 and see where it goes. But as I was crafting that idea of pre-recorded courses, which essentially what you can see in Coursera or Skillshare, where you just sign up, you watch a pre-recorded video, and you learn essentially. As I was crafting that idea of that Skillshare for UX, um, I had a realization when I applied for Y Combinator, and I realized that this won't work. This idea might not just work. My initial idea sucked. So if you don't know, Y Combinator is one of the top venture builders and accelerators, more so in the world. They've funded many companies, amazing companies that are pretty successful. So notable ones in the Philippines include Paymongo, NextPay, and many others like Caliber. And elsewhere in the States, they've helped many of the best startups in the world. So when you do apply to something like Y Combinator, you have to take note of a few things. So at any point, any investor will ask about your problem, and your problem must be immense. It must be big enough that it's worthy to be solved. So find the big problem. It has to be immense. It has to be painful. It has to be felt by a lot of people. And then once you have that immense problem, your solution must be compelling. Like you should solve real problems in a way that is elegant, but also is obvious. Like it's hard to say that a solution is obvious if nobody else has done it, or only a few people have been very successful at solving a specific problem. But the best solutions are typically the most obvious ones when you see it, right? So you have to be creative enough to create a compelling solution for your immense problem. And then your team must be the right team. So it has to have a well-rounded set of individuals where they complement each other. They have their different strengths, and all those strengths relate to the problem you're solving and how you're solving it. So very tough to grasp once you really get into it, because their bar is very high. They don't just invest in everyone, right? So I changed my idea while I was filling out the application. So even though I had some initial concepts of what UX Plus University was in its initial stages, which was again a pre-recorded course, as I was filling it out, they had tough questions for me, like how many active customers do I already have? Are people using the product? How far along am I? Like, do I have revenue? And as I was calculating it, I can't really make a scalable business by just selling $150 of courses. Like I'd have to sell to 100,000 people for me to be somehow successful, right? So quick math that I did was like, what if I could sell something more valuable, maybe something around the lines of $1,500 or $2,000 products to a lot less people. So I could scale this business higher, bigger, by adjusting my offering. So as I thought about it, pre-recorded courses weren't really the way to go. And as I was answering this application form, I tried to dig deeper into really the problem I was solving. Like, is it just about learning UX? Like, what's the motivation behind learning UX? Like, what are the available outlets out there, or options out there for people that want to get into a user experience career or a career in tech in general? So as I was trying to dig deeper into the problem, I crafted a coherent idea, at least to me. But then, as I was crafting it, I started to post it online just to see how people felt about the problem. So I wasn't really posting about the idea. Like, I wasn't saying that I was going to build a university or a boot camp. I was trying to validate the problem first. Like, is this painful that people resonate with it or understand that it is a problem, and also can give their thoughts about how to solve that particular problem. And once I talked about it online, it resonated with people. So in general, what I wrote here is that the cost of user experience education is high, the salary of UX designers is low, and then we need more than pre-recorded courses. So in general, if you look elsewhere in Southeast Asia or in the US, now the cost of top UX bootcamps range from 6,000 US dollars to 18,000 US dollars. So that's quite a chunk of change, definitely. 300,000 pesos, that's 6,000, all the way to almost a million pesos for just learning user experience. But if you think about that, like let's look at like maybe mid-range of that, right? From 300 to 1 million, let's say 600,000, right? The average salary of a designer with 0 to 3 years experience is $17,000 per year in Southeast Asia. That's quite big. But then if you look at countries like the Philippines and if you look outside in general, outside of Singapore, the average salary drops all the way down to 12,000. So basically, you have maybe 600,000 per year. So if we're generous, like you earn 600,000 pesos per year, and then the cost of middle range of the cost for boot camps would be 600,000. Essentially, for you to get a career into in user experience, you'd have to pay your year's worth of salaries to back to whichever school you went to. So essentially, it's not really accessible. If you want to go to another route, which is available on-demand courses, which are there are a lot in the web. There's YouTube, there's Coursera. Data suggests that only 6 to 7% of people finish or complete those courses. So even if you buy a pre-recorded course, people really don't get past the initial like 2 3 videos, or they quit near the end, or they don't fully complete those pre-recorded courses anyway. So it's really a tough thing to think about, right? Like it's free, it's there, but nobody really finishes it. There's no social pressure. There's no motivation for the person since it's free. Like I could do this anytime, right? Like that's the general thought that some of us may have when you get something for free, you don't value it as much. If you look at communities, there are big disparities in perception and activity. So the support is there, but it's inconsistent throughout the different countries, and mentorship is also lacking. So how can prospective Asian designers afford world-class UX education if it's so expensive, but essentially they just want to have fulfilling jobs, right? Like how can they find mentors in a community that supports their growth? So that's the problem I was trying to solve, and people resonated with it. So to learn UX, it's not just about the lectures. It's not just about pre-recorded courses. There's the community, there's mentorship, there's learning from others. It's applying those learnings. It's learning from failure and doing that over and over and over again. And what's important after you've learned everything in practice is you have access to career opportunities and accessible education, essentially, and many more. So how could I build a startup without hiring an engineer? So my problem is solid, right? Like it does resonate with a lot of people. But then this is a dilemma that many new startup founders face. Like I have a great idea, or like I want to solve this problem, but I don't know how to code. So that brings us to the topic of today's talk. For me, it was solving UX education, but for you, it could be something else, right? It could be finance, it could be e-commerce, it could be anything related to the pandemic. It could be any problem that you want to solve, but typically in any effort to solve that problem. It requires knowledge in technology, and also it might mean that you might have to find a co-founder, or you might have to learn how to be an engineer yourself, like a software engineer. So how could you do this? I took inspiration from a cohort-based course I was in. So On Deck is a great program where you learn from your fellow peers, and they have different topics. I went into the On Deck no code cohort, and then the On Deck design cohort, because those are the industries and topics I was interested in, and I wanted to meet people in those communities on a global level. So I took inspiration from their course, not necessarily from what they taught, but it's more about like how they built it out. And they had amazing inclusions in their program, like mastermind groups where people meet each other. They're required to meet each other at least once a week. They have guest lectures, so we're not just learning from the program itself, or learning from people that we look up to. So that mix of programming, and also that mix of how they set us up, was very inspirational for me. Like, they built their whole platform mostly on no code tools. So no code, again, is a way to build platforms without actually writing the code. It's visual programming. It's not necessarily drag and drop, but also it's not as complicated as memorizing lines of code and executing on your own. So they built a whole program that was relying on no-code technology, which I'll talk about in a bit. I was already doing small bits of no-code work in the past. So I've made something like this where I could generate certificates of participation for our conference using no-code tools. Like, I didn't write any code, any line of code. It's essentially, if you can bear with me for a bit, it's essentially a user submitting information on a form. Like, think of a Google form or any form online. So once a user submits their information in a Google form, that information is sent directly to a spreadsheet. So think Google Sheets or Airtable, right? So from form to spreadsheet automatically without coding. And then from that spreadsheet, it gets the information, certain information in the spreadsheet gets sent to Google Slides. So I'm using Google Slides as my designer, actually. So it's online, it's hosted. And what I told this no-code platform, which is Zapier, what I told Zapier would be, take these two bits and pieces, take the name, take the date, take the ID number, and pull those three information into a design that I've pre-made in Google Slides, and bound them together. And then from that Google Slides, like as you can see at the bottom right, there's Christian San Jose, and then there's the number below. In Zapier, like, I gave Zapier the instruction to take the PDF export of the Google Slide design and email it back to the user, and use the email that's found in the record on the spreadsheet on Airtable. So pull back the email from the second step, put it on the last step, send the email through using Gmail, right? So I used a form builder on a website on Webflow. I used a spreadsheet. I used a cloud-based presentation tool, Google Slides. I didn't use Photoshop or anything else. And then I used Gmail. Basically, all of these technologies were talking to each other, so that essentially I didn't have to do a single thing. It's all automated. I didn't have to click one thing. I only set it up once. Essentially, for our 2,000 attendees, they could go to our website. It has a form in there, and then they can generate their own conference certificate if they just have their ID. So in the background, I've also told Zapier to match names and IDs. So that's all part of that. And I did this in maybe 20 minutes, maybe 30 minutes. And it's something that an engineer might take around the same time or even longer to do. And it also takes a bit of coordination between you and that software developer or engineer. So I did this on my own using tools that are already available. And basically, I didn't even try to learn Zapier before doing this. So I mostly learned Zapier by just clicking around, tinkering around, or you can watch a YouTube video. It's super simple to do. So essentially, just with this knowledge, you can automate, say for example, an ordering process in your Instagram account, right? Like say if you receive a message, it gets sent to a spreadsheet. That spreadsheet notifies you on your text, on your phone, on your SMS when you have an order, and then you just go to that spreadsheet, you mark it, check or something. Once you mark that check, like a form gets sent to back as a DM on Instagram. So imagine those possibilities, right? I'm not exactly sure if that exact flow could be done, but a lot of similar things you could do with no code. So that's just an example. So Zapier and all of these software or online cloud-based tools talking to each other, these are already available. Zapier is in the middle of it, and we have so many tools out there. It's not just what I've laid out here. There's MailChimp, there's even Facebook posting, there's image creation tools, there's Canva, there's many tools that are already out there that you can use right now to connect and automate your workflow. And essentially that's what I did. So I rolled up my sleeves and got to work. So in building an online school, there are many steps. So thinking of what I just talked about, which is that automation of process using no code, how can I automate each step of an application process and then conducting a class and then also getting a job? How can I automate all of that in a startup? Without us, up until now, a year from when we started, we haven't hired an engineer. So how can we do this? So let's go from written application to video to the design challenge to registration to them getting their calendars to job application process to us building our job boards and resource hubs and like building out our partnership and events pipelines. Let's do it. So I created an architecture essentially of how everything would flow. So for me, I have a little bit of knowledge on which no code tools to use, but this is essentially just a draft, right? Like I didn't follow this 100%, but essentially this is a draft of a user flow. And then with the technologies associated with each action. So say, for example, they're logging in, it goes to our marketing website, which is based on Webflow. If they have an inquiry, it goes to Gmail, or any application goes to Typeform, and then that Typeform goes to our application tracking, which is in Airtable. So all of these I'll talk about in a bit. Essentially, this is a flow of action and then the technologies behind each action that are all linked with Zapier. So the core of our no-code stack are three general things: Webflow for our building our websites, Zapier to connect everything, Airtable as our database. So think of Airtable, if you're not familiar, as a spreadsheet. So we usually build with Webflow. It's super quick to do. There is not a single line of code that we create, that we wrote to build this website. So it's a mixture of us knowing the tool in and out, but essentially you can learn Webflow if you're interested. In 2 weeks, they have Webflow University for free as well. So yeah, like we built this, I'd say in a week. I built this in a week. Let's go to our no-code stack. Our written application is all on Typeform. So people essentially just fill out an embedded form on our website. Super straightforward. They have steps. It takes generally like 10 minutes. Video application, so we use Video Ask. So people, like I record my questions, people respond through videos, and then essentially we get to have conversations with our users without committing our time, and we could do it asynchronously. So they just submit, and then they submit their applications, and then we can go through all of them. Next, we send our students a design challenge. So again, it's a type form that they can log into with a password that we give out to our students. All of those information, all of the information that's inputted in here in the type form gets sent to our Airtable. So our Airtable allows us to see our data, manage the influx of data, and make sense of it. So go through the emails, the names, if it's a valid application from actually the Philippines, like we can assess our users, and Airtable has different views as well. So you can have this more of like a classic table view. You can have more of a page view. You can build a page where it's more like an infographic, for example. So you can do many things with Airtable that you might not be able to do right now without maybe plugins with Google Sheets. So again, our registration. So we built out a registration platform, which is the toughest part in building a web application. People getting to sign up and getting access to a page that's not accessible for everyone else that didn't sign up or log in. So that's like the most complicated part. If you're thinking of building an app or a website, that layer of security, you have to figure it out. We figured it out with MemberStack. So we use Webflow. It's like, if you're familiar with Front Page or Dreamweaver, like 20 years ago, it's kind of that in the future, like now. So you can essentially build out not just the visuals of your website, but also interactions between Webflow and MemberStack, which would allow our users to sign up, fill in their information, fill in their preferences, and get access to our forums and everything else that we have to offer. Discussions, we use circle.so. So circle.so is our discussion board, essentially, where we post our lectures. We post, where we talk to our students. That's pretty much it. We have our calendar, so people can book 30-minute meetings between instructors and us. So our students would essentially have one-on-one check-ins every week, and they can pick from a time that's set by our mentors. Super SO, we use that to build quick websites. So essentially, we turned a Notion page. So if you're familiar with Notion, we turned that into a full-fledged website with its own URL. So pretty easy to do, a whole website, a quick, more information-dense website that in Notion. So it's obvious for us to just turn that into a standalone website on its own. For job applications, we use Hunter. For our profiles, again, we our student profiles, like we create student profiles so that they can be hired by our partners. We use super.so. For our job board, we use Webflow again. People can essentially find jobs using our job board. Our students build their portfolios on TypeDream, which is amazing. Like after they've graduated, right before they graduate, they build their portfolios based on the case studies that they build in UX Plus University, and that's their essentially ticket into a job interview outside of their CV. So it's like the best proof, and we teach our students how to build websites using TypeDream. We build resource hubs like this as well, Webflow, and then we have our Typeform for partnerships. We have Butter and Zoom for our events where we talk to our students. There you go, some of our students. where we have our conversations on Zoom or Butter. And then we have a bunch of internal tools to make this all work. Like we talk to each other in the team. We have CRMs on Airtable. So things that we're using are not the typical tools. Like if you think of CRM, you might be thinking of something else, right? Like something bigger. But we use generally Airtable, and we maximize that because it's the most well-connected, and we can manipulate it into whatever we want. So if you're a bit geeky like us, try your hand at playing around with some of the tools I mentioned today, and maybe you can connect it all together with Zapier and you can automate your process. So what did no code allow for us? This was October last year, but back then we had 500 plus applications without marketing. Right now we have 1,000 more than that. Seed funding within 1 month of launch. So we received a seed funding offer through a reality show on the final pitch on CNN. So we presented this idea. It was just a concept back then, but yeah, the people responded to it, and UBX and Globe offered us funding. We have 31 amazing graduates. Actually, right now we have 60 amazing UX graduates. So this slide is from that time that we only had 31, but we've done our second batch, and we're on to our third batch actually right now, third and fourth batches. And we have amazing testimonials that I won't go through right now, but you can view them on our website. No code allowed us to teach the next generation of designers more efficiently. I've always hesitated in pursuing my ideas in the past because it was often too hard to find technical co-founders, like people that could code, but not anymore. You can essentially do all of this on your own. Thank you, and you can follow me on Twitter, or you can join us at uxpl.us. Thanks, everyone.
InvestaFest 2022 is brought to you by these major partners: ATRAM, 2Trade Asia, and these other partners. Do not forget to share your experience and learning on social media. Use our official hashtag InvestaFest 2022.